So you don't necessarily have to forgive to heal. Is
No,
that okay?
no, you do not. And again, forgiveness is a tricky word because it establishes a height difference on a soul level, meaning one person is in the right and or has like an owing situation, like you owe me something, I forgive you now, right? So you're creating an imbalance with that word in itself. If you feel into the word. That's why I don't per se use the word forgiveness. However, again, in cases, let's say, of abuse, right? Again, similar to what I was saying with other perpetrator victim dynamics, a perpetrator must say, I did it. They must take responsibility for it. And we can do that really beautifully in a constellation setting. And just that phrase, going back to our phrases that we give, the word I did it, the words I did it, if you let the perpetrator say that in the space or give that phrase to the perpetrator and they can actually say it, it releases and relieves the victims and like a very magical level. And again, I'm not making this up or saying that this is the right way to go. It's just, I'm just observing how everybody in the space goes. And this is not one case. This is hundreds of cases, maybe like that. Again, more in the thousands at this point in my life, but where it's just like, you just hear the release in the space because finally somebody takes responsibility. And then that can heal this person's system. And so that is why. And to cycle back a little bit about your question about honoring, why then to instead of forgiveness, like what is it also, or not instead of forgiveness, but like honoring, right? Honor, like I need to look at this, let's say, field of the dead in my system, all those victims, and I need to take a bow towards them and say, you are part of my family. You're part of my family. I honor you. And if I can say that from my heart, my entanglement there may be released and may open and may not draw my energy anymore. If I can really truthfully say that from my heart. So there's now a different understanding of how large our families have become, right? It's more than we think.
So what it is so special about the forgiveness that we are so, I'm not going to use the word pushed, but we are so advised to forgive, just forgive for your own sake. What is it so special about that?
Repeat that last part.
So in
Special
life,
about, yeah.
forgiving and being advised to forgive, even without having to face the person who wronged you or harmed you or hurt you. Just forgive for your own sake. So what is it so special about this forgiving?
You know, it's really funny. It's a very, I mean, and again, I might be wrong. Maybe it's a more global and cross-cultural phenomenon, but it's a very Christian concept. When we say, oh, you have to forgive them, it's not that that's sometimes very, again, maybe very appropriate, but again, just know in your soul what you're doing is you're making yourself bigger than the other person, whoever that is. Yeah. And again, if somebody, it's not about on a practical level, you know, somebody's like, I don't know, somebody smashed somebody's favorite vase or something, and then they're you know, upset about it. You can apologize, like, and I forgive you, it's fine. Like, that's a different, I'm talking more about like the bigger things, right? Like, I have caused you harm somehow. So instead of the other person going, I forgive you, I can give space to the person who has done harm to actually acknowledge that they've done harm first, right? So I'm gonna, instead of already talking over them, oh, it's fine, I'll forgive you, right? I can, and actually you haven't forgiven, right? Because again, that's the dynamic. You're making yourself I'm better than you because you're the one who's done harm, and I am now the one who has the power to forgive, right? This is like it's from above to below. You can feel the movement, right? And so particularly with your parents, that's not going to help you because just systemic hierarchy in terms of, and again, I'm not a fan of hierarchies, but it's just there is a biological hierarchy. It just is. These people came before you, you came after. That's it. That's just a thing. So is it always going to serve me to stand behind my parents instead of in front of my parents in that line? Yeah. If I put myself here instead of here, this is not my place. So if I live in the shoes of my grandparents, taking care of my parents, or having forgiven my parents for, not giving me the life that I wanted, let's say, it's not going to serve me because I'm not in my rightful place in my system. And again, this is a long journey for a lot of people. It's not easy to do that, but it is possible. And in my opinion, this work, again, all the things that I've explored myself, this is the most effective way of exploring that, amongst many other things. Yeah. But so forgiveness is tricky because of this great, you are reinforcing an imbalance. And maybe instead of saying, I forgive you, you can say, and this is what you meant, I think, in the first place, you can say, you know what? Thank you for giving me my life. If you can say just that, no matter your dynamic with your parents, thank you for giving me my life because I'm here now. And I'm making something out of it. Then it serves life, and then it serves healing. And then you're actually on a good, but it cannot come from resentment to say that. Yeah. Or like, okay, well, whatever, thank you, right? Like not that with attitude. Yeah. It has to come from a genuine place of, a lot was not right and a lot was not good, but I can see that you're my parent and I can acknowledge that and I can accept that. And thank you for giving me my life. If that's all you can say, that is still a lot. Yeah. And this may be a process, it doesn't come easily.
So
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you for explaining it so eloquently. So,
Sure.
does this work help with releasing regret at all?
Interesting. So I regret to me has a feeling of a mix of shame and or guilt, something around that in terms of how it sits energetically and deeper. Regret such as like, oh, I should have been a doctor and I became a school teacher as an example. I'm just making stuff up right now. That is maybe not something I will work with unless it really affects the whole system, like to a large extent. Let's say the person was completely overworked and was never at home. And if they had chosen maybe a different path, they weren't around for the kids. And let's say um, maybe they had chosen a different path and would have had more time, whatever. I'm making stuff up. If it affects the system on a larger scale, then I could maybe look at it. But so those kind of regrets are maybe not to me as systemic or as pressingly systemic. Whereas see regret, and again, mostly tied to shame or a form of fear, a form of guilt carrying, is often with something tragic happened in the system, and let's say a descendant then comes in and somehow claims that balance, somehow claims like, oh, I wish I had died instead of you on a soul level. Yeah. This is what I call the death watchers. When you're sitting maybe all your life at a grave of someone. And again, this is totally internal. This is not maybe somebody even. This is your systemic entanglement with a dead person from your system who probably has been harmed. There's probably been some imbalance here. And so let's say we're sitting here on an energetic level, mourning this person, and maybe on a soul level saying, I wish I had been in your place. Sometimes I wish I would lie there instead of you. Now, this is a very alarms go off in the system, yeah, because that means we're kind of moving towards the dead, land of the dead, okay, as a person. Now, as a systemic worker, I can help with entangling that dynamic and can help the person. Again, it can never be my objective to, I have to make you live. Like I mean, who am I to say that? Yeah, this is part of the individual's fate, but I can help in terms of the healing work to say, look, we can clarify that entanglement because this person, the dead person, wants you to be well and wants you to live. They don't want you to sit there mourning them. They just want to be acknowledged, and you're the one who's making sure that's happening. So maybe their parents have to come in and acknowledge that person. And so they take that load from you, and all of a sudden you can turn around and look towards life because that entanglement is no longer needed. And so in terms of regret, that is the closest I think I can get to that. It's or like understand it maybe. It doesn't come up as much other than that, I think. So the regret or like guilt or shame around um actually like a part of me always wanted to die and I didn't even know that, right? And so by acknowledging this entanglement, I can move towards life. Yeah. And kind of resolve that entanglement. And this would be the ancestor giving the blessing to the descendant and saying, listen, what happened to me is my fate and it stays with me and that's not yours to carry.
Hmm. Where do you see this ritual and the psychological part of this work meet?
Um, the ritual and the psychological part of the work meet, you said?
Ritual.
Um, so it's very, I mean, in many ways, it feels very spiritual. I do want to make a very clear distinction, and Hellinger would also make a very clear distinction often, the founder of this work or the developer of this work, that it's not religious in any form or shape. So even when I use the word fate or something, I don't ever mean that in a religious context whatsoever. It is more spiritual in the sense that I mean something larger. Like there's a larger entity at work here. When something really tragic happened in a system, such as a genocide, for example, right? There is a larger force there that is almost like an archetypal energy. I usually use the word archetype for that. Something like the energy of a big fate, something that happened. Yeah. So I can acknowledge that as well. I can take a bow towards that and say, I see, I can now look at that. Yeah. So that's, I think, where what is to me when I'm working the moments where I feel really, in a way, almost spiritually moved. But yeah, it's not ever a connected to faith, like, or religion. Yeah,
For
I wanna
sure.
be very clear about that.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think though, as a practitioner, one has to be careful because, maybe there are people who interpret it that way more or are moving it with the work into that, maybe potentially into that direction. I don't know. I don't know anyone per se, but like I'm just saying, just beware because then we go astray because then we're not listening to what's actually true in the space. So to me, actually, the spiritual part is I'm being allowed to connect to your family system. Like, what a great honor. What a tremendously great honor that I'm being allowed to work with your family system. And that has priority to me. The family system, there's a beautiful Hellinger video where he talks about, the order of more like Western approach versus like, or I mean, just in general, like how we approach therapy in particularly the West, since it is a more Western modality practice. But and like how we approach it in constellation or how we should approach it in constellation work, which is your family system. That is all the people beyond you, all the people beyond you, all that belong in your system. They come first. Then comes you, the client, the seeker. And then at the very end come I. Like, I'm not important. And so a lot of often it's very reversed. Therapist is the most important, or has, obviously all the knowledge, tells you what to do, et cetera, et cetera. Then comes the seeker, the client, then comes their system. And
Yes.
we believe in the exact reverse. If I don't take a deep bow towards your family system, I can't work with it. If I judge your family system or the people in your family system deeply, if I have deep judgment, if you come in and say, I hate my mother, and the first thing I do is, I hate your mother because you tell me, I can't help you anymore. I have to be completely, as much as I can, completely non-biased about anything I hear, about anything I process. And I just work with what is as it is. This is another very common Hellinger phrase. Like, we work with what is as it is. I'm not adding anything. I'm not taking anything away. Who am I to do that? Your system is going to tell me what it needs, and that's what we're going to do.
I have a self-care question.
Mm-hmm.
For somebody like you who does the practice, you meet a lot of people, you work with a lot of energy fields, and you are an energy worker in a way. How do you keep your energy and your aura always cleansed and balanced and grounded? Do you have a particular practice that you do, or ritual or something?
I think that will be different for every individual. I think every practitioner has to find what that is for them. And, every therapist, every, probably even doctor to a certain extent, I don't know. But particularly as the constellations practitioner, yeah, being constantly immersed in these sometimes very heavy stories. Um, I, I have to say that for me, that was, surprisingly enough, never a big problem. Like, I am very good at going in, going out. I can do that very just, I think it's, again, because I really was
The gift?
raised in energy fields. I'm just like, oh, I'm in, oh, I'm out. I just have a lot of practice in it, you know? So, like, I think practice, 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 putting yourself into those fields, that will be that is, to me, really doing the practice is, to me, what's healing and what's actually helping me to get in and out. But, a lot of people have a little ritual. I think I do it kind of without knowing whatever I'm doing. I walk in, I'm kind of a bit of a blank slate. I'm just like taking things in. I'm just listening. It's listening. It's really the most healthy way of being for me is to be a really good listener to the family system, to this field that's unfolding in front of me. And then I can be the most open and the most receptive and then I can help the best. Then I can be the best helper I can be. And so then when it's done, I mean, you've been there. Like, often it's also so gratifying, even though we went through a lot of heavy stuff, but we come out there and we're all like, wow, we just learned so much about life and the entanglements of humans and how things work, really, on a total different level. And then there's so much, it's so beautifully gratifying to help people. And I've, again, feel very blessed and humble about it and honored that feeds me so much that eh, yeah, to me, then stepping out is just part of that process. But can you have like a little ritual or like whatever, with candles or sage or whatever you need, or like maybe you come from a specific tradition and you want to tap into those more traditional rituals? Great, that will be up to everybody.
Totally depends on the individual then.
I think so. Yeah, I would say.
If you were to put your understanding of your experience of this work throughout all these years in a sentence, how would you say that? What would you say that you learned from humanity after experiencing all this great work?
I hope so much. I learned that there are, again, what I call a person's fate that I have no control over, not even as a helper. So I'm not a savior. I'm not gonna save you. I cannot. Who am I'm that would make me way too big. That's not my size. That's not my rightful it's not my rightful place in our connection with each other. So I'm not a savior. I help movements open or flow or whatever you want to call it. And so that to me is incredibly humbling and an incredibly important lesson. In a way, internally, I'm bowing to something that I don't understand. And I don't want to poke in it. I don't want to understand it. I just let it be. That to me is something that I've learned. Being a much better listener. I was always a very active child, very, very active. Just, probably to the extent of hyperactivity. Um, Always a doer, always like, 140, 50, 200% kind of. So, and very much like head forward into everything. I'm also an Aries, if that helps for
You are.
context. So it's very, it's like very much in my nature, I think. And so I think what it taught me is the power, and again, this helps also when you get older, but the power and the strength of being able to take a step back and because if you take a step back energetically, you actually have space to take things in.
Yes.
And we have to do that in this work. Otherwise, we won't be of much help. Yeah. And so I had to learn it. This I think for me personally was the best teacher I could have had in that. And I've become a much stronger artist in my art, and I've become a much better facilitator in my facilitation. Yeah. Like it's helped
You're
me.
absolutely incredible. You're incredible, and the work that you do is it's beyond. I am very grateful to you and to what you do, and I'm so happy that I got to experience it. And I will see you soon.
Yes. I can't
See?
wait.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for making time for
Thank you
me.
for having me. Thank you for having me, Shida.